You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Hey, everybody. Apologies that we're coming on a little bit later than normal on our NBA Truth, Justice, and the NBA show. I'd actually already had a show cut, recorded, and ready to put on air for Monday. But then I stopped myself and thought, you know something? The show needs to be a little more detailed, a little more thorough, because we're approaching Game 6. I mean, not much of a gap between Games 5 and 6 in terms of the timeline, as Game 6 will be played Tuesday at Cleveland. Cavs, of course, trying to stay alive, down 3-2 to Golden State. I'm not a fan of either team, so I could look at this series completely objectively and impartially and think to myself, okay, what has to happen in order for this to get to a Game 7 for Friday in Oakland? What can Cleveland do? And I think the first thing is, you know what? Continue to play small. Yeah, in the game you did have your regular, starters, but for the most part, you went with J.R. Smith to start. And normally he's a role player. And Smith in the first half looked pretty darn good. 14 points early on. Looked like he was going to be on his way to one of those big games. Of course, second half he disappeared. But the fact of the matter is that your small lineup seemed to be compatible with Golden State's. Remember, the Warriors, again, went with 2 forwards and 3 guards rather than the traditional 2 forward, 2 guard, and 1 center lineup. And for one half, you're right there with them. As a matter of fact, you're right there with them for the first 3.5 quarters until Golden State had that finishing kick, which we'll talk about in a second. But Cleveland needs to, in my opinion, do what they did last time. I know you might be thinking, well, Mozgov in Game 4 scored 28 points. Why didn't they play him more than 9 minutes? And Coach Blatt at the end of the game, even though reporters were being testy with him, Blatt was right, saying, hey, it was working, and it was. You can't just look at what one player did in Game 4 when you went with the bigger lineup and think that Mozgov's going to score 28 if you play him the same amount of minutes in Game 5 as you did Game 4. It doesn't work that way. Mozgov got those points in Game 4, because he was getting, extremely short shots. Now, in Game number 5, if you play him a lot more, he's going to get points, but at the same time, it's going to slow Cleveland down. He played he played quite a few minutes in Game 4, got 28 points, but the Cavs at home lost by more than 20 points. So you can't just look at one guy and look at his stats and say, okay, he's going to duplicate that the following game or give you close to that. Granted, he should have played more than 9 minutes in Game 5, and I'm not going to give Blatt a free pass for that. At the same time, you can't just expect Mozgov to do the same thing in that situation if you play him just as many minutes, because now Golden State is going to eventually figure you out and double team Mozgov, or Cleveland will end up trying to resort to other tactics if Mozgov isn't getting those points, and then you're thrown out of your rhythm. The rhythm that Cleveland had in Game 5 really seemed to work. And remember, too, the Warriors had 16 turnovers in the game. It's not like the Warriors dominated from beginning to end, because they certainly didn't. Curry, yeah, he shot better. Green looks like he's out of his slump, and Iguodala continues to be incredible in these finals. But remember, though, Golden State had flaws in this game, and Cleveland was right there with them with 4:40 to go. They're only down by a possession to 86-84 before LBJ misses that short shot. Iguodala at the other end hits a 3, and then that's part of that 10-2 run, and it was game, set, match at that point. So I think you got to stick with the same lineup if you're the Cavs. Maybe play Mozgov a little bit more, but not much more, because, again, this is going to be about tempo. It's going to be about tempo. Golden State really is going to stress that, and Cleveland needs to match it. I think number 2, again, you might think I'm crazy, but LeBron is going to, again, have to exert a lot of minutes in this one. Cleveland's that limited on options. 44, 45 minutes is going to be extremely excruciating for him, but it's been excruciating in a way for Golden State as well. I mean, Curry was dehydrated at the end of Game number 5. But these are the finals, and for Cleveland, there's no tomorrow if they lose this one. I mean, they're done. Their history and their reign at a world championship this year comes to a halt tonight if they can't get the job done. So again, LeBron's going to have to do what he has been doing, and if there was ever a case to make an MVP for somebody from the losing team if Cleveland doesn't pull this off. You'd have to say him. His worst game in these finals has been, what, 20? And other than that, he's had 40 a couple times, had a triple-double last game. The assist total will, again, have to be extremely high. And that leads to number 3. Somebody else, as far as a perimeter shooter, is going to have to step up. It looked like J.R. Smith was going to be that guy, and then after 14 in the first half, his game went straight to hell in the second half. So, will it come from Shumpert? Will Mike Miller have to play more minutes? We'll have to wait and see. No doubt, you gain defense by not having Kyrie Irving in there. That's the blessing. But at the same time, Dellavedova, even though he plays good D, he's not going to have a game like he did in Game 3 where he scored 20. That was one of those, I'm not going to call it fluke, but it was a surprise that he got that many points. The three-point shot was falling for him that game in Cleveland's Game 3 win. But they haven't won since. And I'm not going to blame Dellavedova for that, but you do look at his point total. It's been relatively low, and it's not like he hasn't shot the ball quite a bit. He's gotten his fair share of good looks. But he can't be your source of offense. It would have to be like a Shumpert, Tristan Thompson, because of the height mismatch since Golden State's gone slower. Thompson's taken advantage of that, both rebounding and point-wise. But you have a feeling it's got to be another perimeter shooter, and if that's the case, then Cleveland's going to have a pretty good shot at extending this series one more game. Otherwise, it'll be very, very hard. And then number 4, finishing kick. This is the big one. Golden State, win or lose, it seems like they play their best ball in the final few minutes of the game. Even in Game 3, when Curry couldn't even hit the broadside of a barn for the most part, fourth quarter, he was finally hitting those three-point shots. We saw Cleveland's 20-point lead, get down to, I think, 1 point at the midway mark of the fourth quarter. Golden State can score that fast, even though they might have one of those games where things aren't going well. So that last part I said about finishing strong, it's easier said than done because of the limited rotation that Cleveland's on. So, I don't think it's one of those situations where Coach Blatt is just getting flat out coached. In fact, Blatt seemed to have the answers against Steve Kerr, the Warriors head coach, in the first few games. It's just players making plays. It's that simple. And I think maybe, I don't know who you put in there if you're the Cavs, but you're going to have to, I think, have an 8-man rotation if you're going to have anything at the end of the game, because there's no doubt that LeBron, he'll give you 100% all the time, but not even LeBron can be expected to give you that high point level all the way through a game with the amount of minutes he's playing. The legs get heavier, more pressure is compounded on you, and tonight the Cavs face the biggest amount of pressure mentally because their season's on the brink of elimination. So, again, those were the points that I wanted to make about Cleveland and their chances of extending it to a Game 7. The fact that LeBron will continue to have to be a force, I think that's the biggest given. I think that'll be a factor. But also, too, sticking with the small lineup, I don't know if Blatt will do that, but he would be advised to. And then the final two things, I really don't know if it's going to happen. If you're going to have another guy to really aid with LeBron, and when I say that, I don't necessarily mean he's got to score 25 or 30, whoever compliments LeBron to be his Robin, but he needs to be impactful. And then number 4, of course, that finishing kick, which Golden State's had in this series, and Cleveland, for the most part, has lacked that. That can make all the difference in the world. And you might be saying, well, you forgot about Curry. He would have to have a bad game. Curry probably won't have a bad game. And even if you guard the guy closely, we've seen him hit threes under pressure. He's done that all season long. He's done that throughout his career, especially this year. That's why he's MVP. He hits 3-pointers whether you guard him or not. He just has that right touch, that right position, that right release. That part you really can't control. So, Game 6, I think, will be close. And I think it's a toss-up. I really think it is. If Cleveland can win it, though, I'm going to tell you this. They'll have a great shot at Game 7 because they'll have the confidence back because of the win, but also 2 extra days of rest. I said earlier on the previous show that Games 6 and 7 would be Tuesday and Thursday. That part was an error. Of course, Game 6 is tonight, but Game 7 will be in Oakland Friday. So 2 days of rest in between 6 and 7, and we saw how beneficial that was for Cleveland on Sunday. Remember, they played an up-tempo pace, and the 3.5 quarters was right there with them. We'll see if Cleveland can get the job done. They'll have to play a complete game and LeBron will continue to have to be LeBron. Should be a lot of fun to watch from Cleveland, game number 6. And, of course, Golden State looking for their first championship since 1975. Thanks, everybody.